in America, National Geographic, H2, History Channel, they loved the premise. They loved my background. Didn't get the series the first time, a year ago, because of my accent for the American networks. It's gone a year later. They dropped part of the story and added an American researcher called Erica Lukes, who's part of MUFON. She's a state director, and she was good, very good, American. So it was going to be called From UFO Detective to UFO Detectives, but I was going to be the lead and I would write it, present it. Love the premise, won't go with my accent. We'll go with an American lead, and I've said forget it, it's my idea. So it's dead in the water. But 2 years we're going around all the networks, and of course America have all the money, the biggest proportion. Yeah, we had the UK networks on board. We had because what they do is you get an amalgam of budgets, but the Americans put in the biggest budgets, and if you don't get them on board, the series ain't going to happen. So it's dead in the water. I found out about a week ago. But my accent, I don't think my accent is that strong. But there you go.
Welsh then? Would have had no chance.
Yeah, yeah. Maybe I should have been in the valleys. But yeah, that's exactly what they've said. Right up the way to the top. They like me, they like the premise. The Americans wouldn't be able to sell it because of my accent. I even said I'd have voice training.
Yeah, you can always water down your accent anyway, can you?
Yeah. But that's what they've said. So it's not going anywhere. But maybe one day, as we approach that 2033, because here's the thing. The mainstream are going to have to go into catch-up. Because they've set the clock running. 2033. But what I suspect will happen, that in the run-up to 2033, the mainstream media are going to have to go, well, it's going to happen in the next year or two. Now I think we best re-examine this subject to UFOs, because we're going to have to deal with ET contact. But here's the thing, they're going to then start looking back at the subject with proper open eyes this time, and thinking, well, maybe these guys weren't so stupid. Maybe these pilots, 5,000 worldwide, who have gone on record, 2,000 military, 3,000 commercial pilots who've gone on record, maybe they weren't crazy. And they're going to have to re-examine it. So suddenly all the people like me and you, who have been open-minded to this for a long time, we're going to be the ones, I told you so. Yeah? And they're going to have to deal with it. But here's the mainstream problem, and it's entirely conceivable. Say in 2030, 3 years before that date, they get an intelligence signal and say, yeah, we have found a signal, and we've determined it's an intelligence signal, middle of nowhere. What happens then if, at the other end, when we announce to the world, yes, we've got this intelligence signal from X how many light years away? What happens if ET out there, on the other end of that, goes, hey, they've just announced us. We'll go there next week. Next week? Because they're a million years ahead of us in their development. And they can make that distance in a week for what would take us millions of years. But that's a real dilemma that nobody's thinking about. But it could absolutely be true that they might be on the other end and go, they've just announced us. We're not secret anymore. Yeah. The whole world knows. Hey, we'll go there now and announce ourselves. We'll see you next week. It's a thought, isn't it? But if this argument of light years does not add up, because of the differences in development, in evolution. The Earth is a relatively young planet, going around a relatively young sun. There are many older suns, many older sequences, with all the exoplanets that have been discovered so far, over 2,000 worldwide so far. Almost weekly, we're finding planets that have got the same kind of ingredients. In the planetary, what the basically mainstream is saying now is, almost for every sun that there is, every star, there's probably a planetary system of between 6 and 10 planets going around every star. So if you extrapolate that, probably one or two of them, what they're calling the Goldilocks zone, not too hot, not too cold, may support life. Okay, so you just extrapolate that into the Milky Way, just our bit of neighbourhood. We're talking tens of thousands of millions of stars. we cannot, I don't defy anybody to comprehend how vast space is. That's just in our Milky Way, let alone the rest of the universe and the rest of the galaxies that's out there. So what it basically is saying is life is almost certainly teeming out there. Now what happens if a planet has developed 1 million years ahead in evolutionary terms than us? They've developed over millions of years to where they've become intelligent, and then they've carried on. Well, let's turn it around. Look where we have just come in the last 100 years. 100 years, the Wright brothers, 1903. And look where we are now, flying beyond our solar system. Who could imagine that the battery power in your mobile phone is more powerful than what got Apollo 11 to the moon? Isn't that a weird thought?
Yeah.
But that's how fast we're moving. And mainstream science cannot even catch up. We seem to be getting faster and faster. But that's just in 100 years. In 5,000 years from Earth time now, if we haven't blown ourselves up, will we be driving around in petrol-driven cars and flying around in jet engines? No, we won't. We'd have developed new methods of propulsion. If you take the analogy of going to Leonardo da Vinci, who was probably the greatest mind of his generation, and many generations, and giving him an iPad and say, Leonardo, how does that work? The gulf is too big. Just in a few hundred years. You wouldn't be able to work it out. You wouldn't have a clue. It'd be just magic. Wouldn't have a clue. And that's just in a few hundred years. But what if you're 1 million years ahead of us in Earth time? You will have developed new methods of propulsion. If you look about in our history, it used to take weeks to cross from London to New York. Now it can take, what, 3 days or something like that. The SR-71 could fly around the Earth, and I think in about 3 hours at its top speed. And that was in the 50s and 60s. The world is shrinking as technology increases. It's a ridiculous argument. But a lot of scientists have got a very narrow field of vision, and they operate within a very stringent field of reference, because it's science and it has to be demonstrable, repeatable, etc. That's what scientists do. But they have, in reality, quite a narrow vision. How can we estimate what a civilization is capable of 5,000 years ahead of us in development terms? 1,000 years? 500 years? Mobile phone. We're of a generation, many of us in this room, we're the last generation who can remember a time without the home computer, a time without a mobile phone. You remember the big bricks in the 70s?
Yeah.
In the Jags, like a big military radio. Look how it is condensing. Just look at memory sticks. The first memory sticks might be 10 megabyte. Now we're getting 256 megabyte little memory sticks that plug in. My first hard drive on a computer was 750 megabytes. And that was the whole operating system on 750 megabytes, and that was about 1997. It just, now we're talking terabytes. Crazy. So this argument for distances is a weak one, in my opinion. Yeah? So, on the strength of that, I'll go into a Q&A now. It's 10:05. How long do you want me to do a Q&A for?
It's 11:10.
Is it?
11:10.
Oh yeah, I haven't moved my watch forward. Is it 11:10, really?
You want me to watch for?
No, seriously, I haven't moved this watch forward. Alright, well, am I going to get told off? Am I alright?
I know.
Right, does anybody want to answer quick 10-minute questions?
Since you started this journey, right, have you experienced any weird stuff? Have you had your phones tapped or
No.
anything like that?
No. But then again, a lot of people said to me, keep your head down, Gary, because some researchers have died in mysterious circumstances. But I said, well, if they want to kill me, they will, and it'll make it look like an accident. But what I say to people is, if ever I've supposedly committed suicide, know for certain that I've never committed suicide, because I never will. So if I suddenly turn up suicide, you'll know that it was mysterious.
Yeah.
But the reality is that if somebody wants to take you out, it is like the films. Somebody can give you an injection, it won't register in a few hours, and basically look like you died of a heart attack or whatever.
Yeah.
So if they want to take you out, they'll take you out. But I've met people who become very paranoid, frightened to go out the door almost. And in reality, I'm not prepared to go down that line.
No.
I accept that it's out there, that it is a bit like Jason Bourne, maybe a bit exaggerated, but elements of it are very real. If the intelligence services want to take you out, they will. Similarly, I think one day I might get burgled, something like that. But I'm not going to worry about it.
No.
But the fact that I kind of know all these things and I'm so open, hopefully means I'm kind of like flagging up to people like you that I'll never commit suicide, that kind of thing. So it makes me less of a risk in some ways. But if they wanted to, they could certainly do it.
Yeah.
But I'm not prepared to live in a paranoid world. So, any other questions?
Yeah, but the cylinder video that you showed.
The solicitor, Harry Harris, Emil Schweitzer, the radar guy.
Cylinder.
Sorry?
Cylinder.
Portsmouth.
The
Say that again.
cylinder, the cylinder video.
Oh yeah, the police officers, yeah.
Police officers,
Yeah, rotated on its own axis, yeah.
Yeah, what you described there, I saw exactly the same object in Cardiff, December 2005.
Well, are you going to take my card and email me about that and fill in a report form? Because I do civilian report forms as well. So take a card, email me, and start a dialogue. There are always people who come to lectures. As daft as it sounds, these kind of stories are all over the place. I went to book a lecture theatre at the Civic Hall in Holmfirth for a conference. It was the first time I went in. I saw the caretaker lady. And I said, oh, you're going to think this is a bit strange, but I want to book a lecture for UFOs. Oh no, I've seen one myself, she said. And straight away people regale into a story. And then she said, hey, my husband saw one as well, coming over the hills. And straight away you're getting all these anecdotes. Now these anecdotes are tremendously important, because they're not just describing lights in the sky. The caretaker actually said that when she was a girl, 15, 16 years old, she was outside on the doorstep having a cheeky cigarette. So it's a great way to remember stuff. Right, cheeky cigarette on the doorstep, daylight, and she says this ball of light came over the rooftops, stopped, moved, went sideways, stopped, and it was on the opposite side of the street, literally just 50 feet away. And then it suddenly went straight on. Now, why is she going to make up a story like that? She didn't. And I get so many of these stories. So these anecdotes are real. But my favourite case is the pilot cases, because they just prove it in one. If a pilot in broad daylight doesn't know what he's chasing, what he's looking at, I mean, are you aware that pilots have fired on UFOs in broad daylight and nothing's happened? There's a case, I met the pilot called Colonel Oscar Santamaria, Peruvian pilot, gone on the record, on video, all the documents prove it, and basically in 1980, in daylight, he is sent up to intercept a daylight radar confirmed UFO that's just hovering. So he's sent up, like many of these other cases, and as he's approaching, he's told to shoot at what he thought was a balloon, because it looked like a balloon shape, a round sphere basically. He thought it was a balloon, and he's told to shoot at it with his machine gun cannons. So he does, he shoots off about 64 rounds, and he sees the bullets, the tracer, hit this object, just absorbed. He's thinking, he's expecting it to blow up. But it doesn't, it then just goes straight up, 10,000 feet in about 3 seconds. Just jumps straight up. Not something we can do. So he has to get his afterburner on, get up there, to get on another run at it, and just as he's approaching his run again, it goes another 10,000 feet in 3 seconds. Oh, put it up. And it eventually does this 3 times, taking it beyond the flight ceiling of his aircraft. 70, 80,000 feet. Gentlemen there.
Why do you think UFOs crash if they're so invulnerable?
No idea. No idea. It's a good question, because it is an odd thing. But what they think is that certainly the early crashes, they think that was an anomaly or side effect of our radar that somehow affected the gravitational force. That's all that they speculate. In the public domain, we don't know. some people, whistleblowers, have said that there was the radar somehow affected the guidance system of the propulsion system on the UFO. Because we think that they're using engines in a conventional sense. We think that they can do these high-speed manoeuvres because their propulsion system is based on anti-gravity.
Yeah.
They create a force field around the edge of the craft, so therefore inside we're just like flying around at 1,000,000 miles an hour, and we can do a right angle turn, but there's no inertia because it's created its own gravitational force. So wherever it goes, you're not affected by it. That's what they think, and this is why there is this talk about free energy, and another reason why it's secret, because the government. I mean, people say to me, well, why don't they land on the White House lawn? Well, the obvious answer is, if they did, they'd probably get shot. What you've got to realise is that while science is quite, I think, arrogant, many scientists will say we're the only sentient beings, blah, blah, blah. That was a big argument for many, many years. They're moving away from that now. But basically, on the scheme of things, I think we're like an ant on the ground in technological terms, in development terms, as to what they are, who might be 1,000,000 years ahead of us. We would be like, we won't talk to the ant on the ground, would we? Because the gulf in intelligence, we would say, was too great. Or, you know, could you talk to them? It sounds daft, but if you've got something that's so advanced, I think we're very primitive, and we're very warlike, and most of the world is in turmoil. We kill each other when we could feed everybody. We, you know, the top 2%, or is it 1%, top 2%, own most of the world over the 98% that don't. That's not right. We could do something about that, but we don't. It's a whole mess. So I think we're probably very good reasons why they mostly surveil us. I think we're very primitive. We're like pond life, I think.
Actually, I disagree with that.
Well, go on. What's your theory?
Well, I was talking about it today with a friend. I was reviewing a book I'd read, Childhood's End by Arthur C. Clarke.
Okay.
And he
A
starts
skeptic, by the way. UFO skeptic.
Fine.
Yep.
No problem with that.
No.
The story goes much what you said. At the end, there's a twist that we are the intelligence. We are the most developed aspect.
I
It
think
gives
that
us
was a
reasons.
product of his generation.
Well, actually, I kind of agree. I think we are, and I think the aliens are not.
I guess we'll never know.
Well, I think we will soon.
Well, I hope so. Well, to put it this way, it is coming. And this is what I say about the 2033. It's coming.
Yeah, I do agree with that.
And mainstream are going to have to catch up and readdress how they look at this, reevaluate how they look at this subject. Because they're going to have to confront contact. And we are going to be the first people in official history that deal with contact. It's going to happen in many of our lifetimes. For the first time ever, official contact. And they always say that it will be the biggest step for mankind, contact with another species. Well then.
Mike goes on about the human species. I was talking to somebody the other day and they was talking about aliens being here, and they said that they're here but they're not allowed to interfere with us.
Well, I guess this goes...
Because the process, the human body, the aliens are not changing like us. It's only the human bodies, and we got to go through this process ourselves.
On the abduction side, there are many accounts that there's a lot of aspects to it. It's very complicated, but there would certainly appear to be some alien species are interested in reproductive organs, hybridization, fetuses being removed from abductees, and then later on being reunited with them every few years when they see these half-human. So that is common all around the world, even in third world, where there's no access to media. So this is real. We can't make it up. You know, how can somebody in the middle of the Amazon, with no access to TV, radio, newspapers, effectively a third world person, recount the same event of being taken on board something and being medically examined? Where did they get that infrastructure from? That's New Zealand. Right, go on.
Rendlesham, you know.
Rendlesham, yeah.
They did say it was a lighthouse.
Okay, so let's say that's
you're
what.
not.
Yeah, look, right. Rendlesham Forest can be defined in one particular sphere.
Show your picture.
New
What's
Zealand.
next?
Right. You don't want to look at my photos. So, right, New Zealand. No. Rendlesham Forest. In essence, when you look at the evidence for Rendlesham Forest, the fact that it's over 3 days, doesn't matter. I cut to the chase of evidence straight away. It all hinges on whether it's UFOs or not, on one aspect. Does Colonel Holt on the third night, with his 4 other officers, a lieutenant and 3 sergeants, are they in a field when an object comes towards them, stops above their heads at 1,000 feet and casts down a laser beam at their feet? There's only 2 alternatives. Either Holt and his team are lying, or it happened. And if it happened, it ain't a lighthouse. Because what lighthouse can stop above your head and put a beam down?
No.
So you just take one little piece of it and the lighthouse theory is evaporated. But let me just tell you a side effect of this. I've done many documentaries over the years, some with terrestrial TV like Channel 4, Channel 5. Right, the last 2 I've got involved in, Channel 4 and Channel 5, I said to them, you've not got a very good record of doing decent documentaries on UFOs. And they go, oh yeah, no, we're serious about this one. We're going to tell you. Oh, great, okay. I said, well, I'll tell you, I'll give you a challenge. I said, I will give you a world exclusive, but I'm saying to you, you will not use it in the final edit. Oh, we will. I said, here's the challenge then. I'm going to show you the field where I went with Colonel Holt. I've identified the field, nobody else has. And this is the field where the beam came down at his feet. I'll take you to that location. It's never been shown in any documentary. Are you interested? Oh yeah, we're interested. So we go, film it. Is it in the final edit? No. Who wins the bet? Me. Why? Clever editing. Because in the final bit, the presenter goes, so, multiple nights, multiple witnesses. Was it a UFO? Or was it a lighthouse? They could not have used that open-ended lighthouse bit if they'd have included that sequence in the field.
If there was a lighthouse,
So-
they should have been chasing it every night.
Well, that's the whole point. Well, but here's the thing is, Holt used to take people out to the lighthouse for a visit. So he knew where it was. And in reality, in the weapons storage area, which I worked on 2 of them, at Honington in Suffolk, same county, and in Labrook in what was then West Germany, you have the weapons storage area with the bunkers, and in the middle of it, or at one end of it, there is at least 1 tower that's manned 24/7, 365 days. Right? The site is about 30 to 40 people on shift at any one time. That proves the numbers alone, Rendlesham is, because a conventional bomb dump, 1 or 2. Yeah? Guards. Nuclear weapons, guarding 365, 24/7, 30 to 40 per shift. Alright? So the numbers were mixed up. But the tower, they have 1 tower that's higher, that's about 80 feet high. And it's purposely higher so that it has a full 360 for the guy in the tower. And in the top of the tower, they have a miniature layout of the entire site, like a model. And it has all the alarm settings that can be triggered by rabbits, because it's the microwave, right? Because they have an outer stereo fence and an inner fence, and it's microwaved. So if anybody tries to break through the fence, it triggers an alarm. The alarm is triggered on this big board. So the guy in the top of the tower, it's 80 feet. The trees are not allowed to go more than 40 feet. So he gets the perspective of 360. So the guy in the tower knows where the Orford Lighthouse is. Every shift he's up there. Because he goes, lighthouse. Oh, look, that's the lighthouse. Yeah? Every 5 seconds. Oh, look, it's the lighthouse. He knew where it was. They all knew where it was. But nobody talks about the weapons storage area because it's too sensitive. Nobody wants to go near nuclear weapons because it broke all the armament agreements. hence why nobody will cover these aspects.
Staff Sergeant Penn didn't touch this craft. Did
Yes.
it? And had a download.
I don't believe it.
Huh?
I don't believe it.
You don't believe it?
I think he lied.
Right, okay. You know,
No, but let me say this.
no, I was going to say, I'm not going to argue, you know, but I'll make a point that I'm trying to
He did
answer
touch
my
it.
own mind, yeah.
He did
the,
touch
the
it.
binary download, which he supposedly had,
I don't
I've gone transposed it, and that is correct. But that doesn't mean to say that he actually had it. Now, but it does actually refer to a location called High Brazil, which is an
Yeah.
island west.
7 locations it refers to, including.
Yeah. So you've got no feedback or further information on that. You don't believe it. So.
I'm a detective,
Yeah.
right? His reasons, he claimed on the 30th anniversary
Yeah.
conference, so for 30 years he kept this secret,
Yeah.
even from John Burroughs, who was with him,
Right. Okay.
and
okay.
he suddenly
Yeah,
came
that's
out with this
said that,
binary
yeah,
code.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Anybody
he-
can make it up, but you know.
Right,
Yeah.
now, I think by then, Penniston's had some issues with drink and blah blah blah. I hope the camera's not going in.
It's good enough.
You're not recording?
No.
Good. But yeah, I've met Penniston.
Yeah.
Right? He went off the rails a bit. He was a brilliant witness at the time. But later on, I think he's got dazzled as the case became more famous. People are saying, oh, we'll make a feature film of this. Oh, you're one of the key stories. And I think through whatever, money started to go. So what better could he do? Come up with this binary codes. Whoa, wow. And all these. Linda Moulton Howe had the binary codes as well.
Yeah.
Right? The reality is that in his pocketbook, it was a clip pocketbook. You can take pages out and put them in. It wasn't a proper binding
Yeah.
book.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Colonel Holt, when I heard about this binary code, I said to him, what do you think of the binary code? He says, don't believe it. He said, I've looked through that pocketbook loads of times. He says, I've never seen any binary code pages. He said there were 6 pages. Then on a radio show, he said there were 10 pages. Then on another radio show, he said there were 12 pages. Well, I think I'd know if there were 6, 12 or 10. And here's the reality. There was a book by Linda Moulton Howe called Glimpses of Other